next level cameras are going to do for your production. They're going to do for your whether it's your church media crew, whether it's your filming crew, even podcasting as well. So many things are going to be explored today. We really, really look forward to hearing directly from Tom. So for those that have attended and have logged in early, you are welcome. And like we said, there is a promo going on today for those that are not aware. It's going to be spoken a lot more during the webinar, but you get a 20% discount on any of the Atem Mini family switches. Apart from the Atem Mini, you get a special 20% discount. And stay tuned. It's only available for you guys that have joined in, so look forward to that. So without wasting any further time, please, where you are on your seats or at your offices, make a big drum roll, put your hands together as we welcome Tom Shiprid as he takes this presentation forward. And it's going to be an awesome time. So Tom, you are welcome. Thank you so much for making the time to be here.
Great. Thank you, Joel. Thank you for the nice introduction. And thank you to everyone from Highway AV for hosting this session today. We've got Biola with us, Fozia, a great video, by the way. Love the amount of screen time you get in there. And as already using the studio cameras for 4K. And Joel, again, well done on pronouncing my surname correctly.
I had to make sure.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to mute everyone now. Yeah, there it is. Mute all, apart from myself. Excellent. Great. So thank you everyone for attending today. My name is Tom. So I've got a few words about myself. So Tom Shiprid. I come from Poland, but I live in the UK now. I have been with Blackmagic Design for about 1 year now. I'm responsible for looking after the camera products, so that is cinema cameras, broadcast cameras, and camera relevant related products. I gained my experience in cinematography, working on short films, on sets of short films, feature films, music videos, and corporate films, and worked with all the type of all brands of industry standard camera equipment and video equipment. So not only Blackmagic, but I know the industry from the user's experience as well, not just sitting here as a manufacturer. Great. So today's session is going to be about the studio cameras 4K Plus and 4K Pro. We know that we've already released these cameras a couple of months ago, so some of you might have already been using them, as we saw in the video from Fozia. But today's session will be about how the camera integrates into live productions on that lower scale of the budget, using Atem Mini and other Atem switches. So let me share my screen to start the presentation. By the way, guys, the chat has been disabled, but you can ask questions in the Q&A section, which will be done. I will be done answering at the end of this presentation. So right, okay. So you should see my name on the screen, I believe. Let me just double check that it's working. It is. Seems to be working. Fantastic. So this is how the name is spelled. So you can see why Joel was did a great work pronouncing my surname. Again, that comes from the name comes from Poland, but I live in the UK now. So quick agenda for today's session. We are going to look first at the growth of small production. So that is, we're going to look at what we consider a small live production, where you already operate, and what the future of small production is. Then we look at the studio cameras, so specifically about what we mean by a studio camera, how it's been, what traditionally meant a studio camera, and how we sit with this term. Then we look at the product overview. So that means specifically the studio cameras 4K Plus and 4K Pro. And section 4 will be the key workflows. So we'll have a look at 3 workflows in which we believe that the cameras will be used the most, how they sit with other range of Atem products, and a quick summary, and as I mentioned, a Q&A section. Guys from Highway Indy will be looking at the questions that you are asking throughout the presentation, and if there's a lot of questions, then there will be a chosen one that I will try to answer live on screen. So let's start. So I'd like you to start off by thinking about what you'd like to get out of this session today and why you're here. Perhaps you are an existing Atem mini switcher user and are already involved in production of podcasts, corporate communication, conference videos, and other live events. Or perhaps you're looking to equip your small production facility either from scratch or upgrade an existing one and would like to find out more about studio feature cameras. So if any of these applies to you, then we believe that this presentation will sit nicely with you today. So let's take a look at some statistics first for the growth of small production. So one thing is certain, based on the research, is that over the recent years, we have witnessed an explosion in small production for live streaming. So when we look at some numbers, we see that video market as a whole is showing some staggering growth, especially in the recent years. So the prediction is that the streaming market as a whole will be worth just over $124 billion by 2025. So to put that in perspective, some 5 years ago, in 2016, it was worth $30 billion. So we see a huge predicted growth, and we've already seen some of this because we're halfway there through to the 2025. In the US only, the live stream watch has increased by 250% year on year. That's 2019 to 2020, according to YouTube. Of course, we know that a huge part of it is due to the ongoing coronavirus and the pandemic and all the lockdowns that were imposed as a result of it. But this hopefully, as we see the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully this is coming to an end. And if the situation is ever going back to normal, do we think that it will all end after the pandemic? Well, according to the GWI market research, a quarter of viewers will continue to stream more post-COVID. And also 81% of students have reported that digital learning, including video, really helps them with returning knowledge and in the education. So that means that there is still significant future ahead of amateur and semi-professional live production ventures, despite the easing restrictions. So let's have a look at some typical applications where existing customers of Blackmagic Atem design, Blackmagic design and the mini switches have been already operating. So some of you may already be actively involved in these areas, or you may be looking to get into them. But we've got areas such as podcasts and social media. So of course, even before pandemic, this has always been quite big. Radio stations turning video and podcasts. There are some big names. I'm sure you already have your familiar channels that you follow. Platforms such as YouTube, they provide enormous business opportunity for entrepreneurs to run podcast channels for every subject imaginable, from sports commentary to technology reviews. And this shows no sign of slowing despite the easing of restrictions. But we also see an increased use of streaming systems amongst corporate users, that is for charities, for corporate events. Education, again, huge since the pandemic. A lot of colleges, universities, and other educational facilities, they were forced to move to online delivery to deliver the educational content. And again, this sees no signs of slowing down, and students show that they enjoy this type of content. Universities and educational platforms still continue to take advantage of the opportunities that they've created themselves by equipping their studios, and they plan to continue to delivering online educational content. And going forward, we've got e-gaming, which is of course huge on platforms such as Twitch and YouTube and other platforms. Again, greatly, it's getting greatly popular and more popular throughout the recent years. Outside small studios, we find parts of the live events market that have already made the necessary switch to virtual events, such as conferences, corporate events, customer outreach. I mean, this presentation is a good example. I mean, I'm able to reach remote parts of the world, delivering live now to you guys in Africa, which previously I wouldn't have been able to go into so many parts of the world in such a short space of time. Then performing arts and live events. These have always been big on live production. Traditionally, we would have seen events such as big concerts, arena concert shows, international music events, or even on the national level. We have seen kind of the bar being the entry criteria opening for smaller productions as well, smaller scale events, local music events, theaters that were predominantly only open for in-person viewers now have also entered the streaming market. And again, that's that they plan to, there's no plan of slowing down and continuing to reach to the wider audience by hybrid delivery for live and in-person events. So one thing that these level of productions have had in common so far is the lack of dedicated studio cameras in that price point to satisfy the needs of live production, and the users, the operators, had to resort to using cameras such as DSLR, mirrorless cameras, generally stills dedicated cameras, and entry-level camcorders to deliver the live content. So, of course, using this type of equipment comes with compromises and limitations that users have to overcome in terms of operational efficiency. So, let's specifically have a look at what exactly I mean by those. So, what are you as an operator missing when using mirrorless or DSLR cameras to deliver your live content? Of course, first of all, remember that these type of cameras are optimized for stills photography, not for live or continuous production. But what do we actually need from a studio camera? So things like large viewfinders, you don't see them in DSLR mirrorless cameras. Instead, you'll see small flip-out screens, perhaps fixed small EVFs, so electronic viewfinders. So no easy way of quickly assess the image, check the exposure, especially from a distance. Balanced audio for professional microphones. Again, something that you would not see in stills types of cameras. Instead, you may see unbalanced mini jack connectivity and poor quality microphone preamps. Full-size HDMI ports, again, non-existing in this type of cameras. You would see instead often mini HDMI or even micro HDMI connectors, which come with a lot of limitations. You either need to purchase specific cables which are not as widely available, or adapters which then hinder the operational efficiency. studio features that are lacking, like tally and talkback. So just a reminder, the tally is that red or green screen, the large light at the top of the camera that's being used by the operator to know that the camera is currently delivering live image to the program output. And in terms of presenters, when in multi-camera setups, they know which camera to look at, which camera is currently picked by the director to feed the live content to. Talkback, this allows seamless communication between the crew, so the operators, the technical crew, and the director behind the scene, without interrupting the delivery of live content. So you've got these headsets that allow to quickly, efficiently communicate, especially useful when there is a production that's taking place maybe on slightly larger area, perhaps a few rooms, a few studios, or slightly larger, basically, geographical area. So there are, of course, various bolt-on adapters that you can add, but they come at an extra cost, and they don't offer the same level of integrity as, of course, as I build is a fully equipped systems. So what about camcorders? So again, very similar situation to DSLR and mirrorless cameras. Majority of the points that I mentioned are applied to entry-level camcorders as well. You may see some larger HDMI connectivity in higher-end models, even Sdi connectivity in top-end camcorder models, but these come at a greater price point. What the mirrorless and DSLR cameras and camcorders have in common in terms of lacking is the functionality to fully integrate with Atem switches. So you don't get, either with camcorders or stills cameras, you don't get the full connectivity with Atem switches. You can, of course, use them. You can connect the camera to your switcher and use it as a separate source to switch between different channels, but you don't get the full camera control, you don't get the full integrated talkback, etc., that you do get when working with Blackmagic cameras in conjunction with Atem switches. Again, you can add, of course, additional adapters, but they do not cover the full connectivity that you get with the studio cameras. So we are getting to start to define what we need from a studio camera for a live events and for small productions. So let's have a look at what we actually mean by studio cameras. So on the screen now, you should see a form of chart. If you look at them horizontally from left to right, it represents one setup, and top to bottom, it represents different scales of production. So, for example, at the top, you've got the traditionally the largest budget production. So, when it comes to studio cameras, they have traditionally until now been associated with large mainstream broadcast environments with large budgets. For example, we've got the Blackmagic LSR broadcast camera system, which uses a single fiber cable to handle bidirectional connectivity between camera and a switcher using the fiber adapters. It handles not just the video, but also audio, talkback, tally, and camera control, as well as power. It increases the efficiency and productivity. It's great for productions that require very large coverage, where cable runs are really long. So this offers up to 2 kilometers cable run. It's great for events such as golf courses, football matches, baseball, any large sports event. where professional SDI connectivity it may not be sufficient. But a much wider range of studio and live productions have that less demanding requirements. Example where professional SDI connectivity or more affordable systems using HDMI cables are ideal. So that's if you look at the middle section of this chart, and which represents a Studio Camera 4K Pro using SDI infrastructure, and then the lower end is the Studio Camera 4K Plus using HDMI connectivity. So without a studio camera in this price bracket, till now, content creators have had to adopt mirrorless and DSLR or entry-level camcorders to deliver their content. So this is what we believe that the type of market that these cameras, the studio cameras, will be ideal for. So this can now change with the introduction of the studio cameras. You can bring the broadcast style studio and live features for those smaller scale productions. So in the next few slides, we're going to look specifically at the Studio Cameras 4K Plus and 4K Pro. So two models. I'm going to talk about the common features and then some of the differences and technical details of these cameras. So let's start with what these cameras have in common. So of course, in the heart of any camera lies its sensor. So the sensor that these cameras use, they are 4K sensors that we have seen in the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. So sensors that have been greatly appreciated by a very wide audience. People love the color reproduction of the camera, the flexibility that comes with the 12-bit Blackmagic RAW images. So it's the same tried and tested sensor from that Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. So it's ideal for studios that already use those Pocket cameras and want to introduce additional studio featured cameras. The sensor covers 13 stops of wide dynamic range. So then again, it ensures that the camera can capture details in the highlights and shadows simultaneously in one scene. So high contrasty scenes, which are quite common in this type of productions. And again, just like these Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, this studio camera does come with dual native ISO, which makes it possible to work in situations with very limited and demanding light conditions where previous iterations of studio cameras would not have been possible to use. I'm going to talk about the ISO in the next in a couple of slides from now. But now let's look at what sits in front of the sensor, which is of course the lens itself and the lens system. So we have used, again, just like with the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, we're using the same Micro Four Thirds system in those studio cameras. This has been highly successful in the Pocket line of cameras, and the reason why they're successful, one of the reasons is, of course, the Micro Four Thirds lenses. The system has been originally designed by Olympus and Panasonic to work with the stills cameras. So stills cameras traditionally feature higher resolution sensor comparing to some older video cameras, and the lenses had to provide the resolving power that was sufficient to perform well on those high resolution sensor and still deliver the sharp images. So that's why these lenses are performing very well on now the video and cinema cameras that have sensors that traditionally were not seen at this type of camera, so high resolution images. In terms of the popularity, probably one of the big reasons for the popularity is the success of the Pocket Cinema Camera 4Ks, which again, apart from those original manufacturers, also prompted some third parties, some other manufacturers to create and expand the line of MFT lenses. So we have a lot of, we have dedicated cinema style and video style lenses featuring the Micro Four Thirds system. We even have anamorphic lenses, of course, not hugely relevant to the studio cameras, but it just shows how wide and popular this system is. And even some specialized lenses like probe lenses and artistic lenses featuring Micro Four Thirds system. Automatic, fully automatic and motorized lenses with autofocus and motorized zoom technology. They can be used now with the new focus and zoom demands, which are accessories that we are shipping imminently. So they are now available to order. They have been released last week, and we are now beginning to ship these accessories to users who and resellers who have placed their orders. Speaking of motorized lenses, be it for zoom or focus, they also fully functional with the Atem switches. So either with the smaller ones through the Atem software control that comes with the Atem Mini series switches, as well as, well, Atem software controls with all, comes with all Atem switches, but there are also Atem hardware panels and some bigger panels which we do introduce, do include the camera control system that can be used. So again, with the studio cameras, these can be used. And of course, one big thing about Micro Four Thirds system is the price range. And so they comparing to some large cinema and ENG style lenses, they're very affordable and lightweight and compact. Now I promise that I'll talk about the dual native ISO. So for those of you who are not too familiar with it, the native ISO is the ISO level at which the camera only uses the built-in amplifier without addition of additional digital amplification or signal reduction, which adds some additional noise. So at this native ISO, the camera performs at its best, offering wide dynamic range, equal level of detail in the above the middle grade and below middle grade area, as well as optimized noise performance. So the camera actually uses gain for sensitivity instead of ISO. So gain works in exactly the same way as ISO. It just denominated differently. Every 6 dB of gain equals the full stop increment of ISO range. So dual native ISO, we've got the native levels of 0 dB, so it's easy to remember, which is equivalent to 400 ISO, and 18 dB, which is equivalent of 3200 ISO. And of course, the whole range spans between -12 dB, which is 100 ISO, all the way to +36 dB, which is equivalent of 25,600 ISO. So a huge range of sensitivity options, ideal for productions, live events that don't feature a great level of professional lighting, which are very, very common. For example, on this image on the screen, you can see a performance lit with candle lights, which was filmed with the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. And of course, there was additional lighting there, but very subtle, just to add a bit more detail. Situations where you wouldn't have been able to use cameras and produce usable images with low light. Now, due to the inclusion of the dual native ISO, you're able to go into that second bank of higher ISO levels and then minimize the noise while getting bright images at good quality. Okay, so now let's have a look at the back of the camera. So we talked about the front, the sensor, and the lens, and the inside. At the back, we have the large 7-inch Viewfinder touchscreen, which is a key feature of the studio camera design. This is identical to the electronic studio viewfinder that you would normally mount on top of your camera, or the size 7-inch is the same size as the larger video access monitors and other third-party monitors, which you normally have to purchase to get better view of your image, which allows you to easily assess your exposure and framing, which is ideal, for example, for operators. If you have a single operator manning multiple cameras, so from a small distance, you can straight away see what's happening with each of these studio cameras. Again, this comes as a standard. Both of the studio camera 4K models come with the same, not the same, but the same size screen. It is 1920 by 1200 pixels, so full HD image, and studio camera 4K Plus has a brightness screen with brightness of 600 nits, while the studio camera 4K Pro, so the higher model, comes with 2000 nits of brightness, which is ideal when working in bright environments, so outside with, for example, strong sunlight hitting from the back of the operator, so reducing the glare on the image. Again, the viewfinder comes with a foldable screen cover, so when flying the camera on the larger productions on a jib, you can cover the screen entirely with the sun hood, or you can expand the sun hood, and you can also remove it completely. The screen is it is a touch screen, and it features the same Blackmagic OS system that Pocket Cinema camera, so very easy to use. For those of you who are already familiar with our cameras, you don't need to learn new menus. The layout is very intuitive and easy to follow. Now, next to this screen, one more thing about this screen actually. So something that you wouldn't see in DSLR cameras are the included tools to help assess the correct exposure. So all the major tools, so we've got Zebra, false color, histogram. They already built into the camera, so you don't need to purchase additional. So on the left and right hand side of the screens, on the side we've got the tactile physical buttons and dials. So on the left you've got the three assignable buttons that you can assign to quickly access the most common features that you need on a daily basis. On the other side of the screen, the three dials allow you to change the brightness and contrast of the screen. My personal favorite is the focus peaking dial. So you don't have to go into the menus to change the level of focus peaking. You can simply dial the knob if you need to critically assess the focus of your image. And then if you don't want the red, without having to access internal menus. So very quick, with designed with the operator's convenience in mind. Next, the side of the camera, so the connectivity. So the studio cameras are designed to output live to Atem switches over HDMI or SDI and 10 gigabit Ethernet. So these cameras don't have the traditional onboard recording. By that I mean there's no SD card slot or CFast card. Instead, for isolated recording, we have an approach that we believe is more flexible and offers better quality. So each of these cameras have got two USB-C ports, 5 gigabit ports, which are exactly the same. So you can use them to connect two SSD drives for a backup recording if you'd like to, or you can use one to connect an SSD drive, while another port can be occupied by external accessories such as zoom and focus demand. So each camera can record 12-bit Blackmagic RAW 4K files onto affordable USB-C SSD drives, even when live switching HD over HDMI with Atem mini series. So the camera, the internal, the SSD recording will always be in UHD resolution. The external recorded Blackmagic RAW files can then be relinked in DaVinci Resolve when working with Atem Mini Pro ISO or Extreme ISO models for highly efficient post-production workflow if you want to deliver better version of your live event after the event has ended. So you've got, again, that offers you that greater flexibility and quality. So I mentioned that the internally recorded files, by internally I mean to via USB-C, those recorded files are in Blackmagic RAW. So some of you may not be too familiar with Blackmagic RAW, so let's have a look let's take a closer look at Blackmagic RAW. So Blackmagic RAW is a codec. So traditionally we would have two ends of a spectrum when it comes to video codecs. The traditional normal full video 422 codecs, which are created in cameras to create smaller files through heavier compression and by throwing away half of the color information. These come with a greater, with ease of use and lower cost thanks to the lower file sizes. But they offer little flexibility in post-production due to the increased compression levels and that extra chroma subsampling. So 422 or 420 are quite common for video codec. On the other end of the spectrum, we've got RAW codecs. So these take data directly from the sensor, optimized for highest level of quality. Usually uncompressed or with slight compression, and they take data directly from the sensor and allow greater flexibility, but come at a price of much higher file sizes, much larger file sizes, which again comes at the cost of higher price for storage. So Blackmagic RAW gives the best of the two worlds. So it gives you still the same raw flexibility and quality by recording full RGB 12-bit images with no chroma subsampling, with great flexibility in post-production, which allows you to change the color coding. So no looks are now baked into the image. You can change aspects such as color gamut, dynamic range, gamma within in post-production after recording your clips. And again, this comes with a benefit of video video size file sizes. So on this screen, we've got a comparison to Apple ProRes video codec, which we use because we believe that for comparison, because they are somewhat a industry standard video codec. So both ProRes and Blackmagic RAW operate at several compression levels to give you choice of quality levels. As you can see from the chart, Blackmagic RAW actually offers small file sizes when comparing to equivalent quality ProRes video codecs, still giving you the flexibility of RAW. So again, comparing to equivalent ProRes, this is smaller file sizes, which again translates out to lower entry criteria, lower cost of storage, and ease of working in production with. Right, so this makes an ideal choice when wanting to create a separate version of the content after the live event. So you may record your live event either via screen capture or via Atem Mini Pro ISO and Mini Pro. You've got the higher compressed files, and if you want to then create a separate version with the higher quality, you can use the Blackmagic RAW files to do so. So now let's take a look at the key differences between the two cameras. So the Studio Camera 4K Plus and Studio Camera 4K Pro are specifically designed to bring the broadcast studio style operation and efficiencies to the users of Atem Mini series switches for small scale production and live streaming. So there are two models, the Plus and the Pro. The Plus model is designed to integrate with Atem Mini switches for HD, production using Hdmi connectivity. With these features listed on the screen. So you've got the main output is via full-size HDMI port, and it's still got the two USB-C ports. Next is the Studio Camera 4K Pro, which adds a dimension of flexibility as a starting point, like the 4K Plus. It also integrates with Atem Mini HDMI environments, but also has a brighter screen and adds professional balanced audio connectivity. But the Studio 4K Pro strength lies with the 4K productions in mind when integrated into SDI environments with switches such as Atem Broadcast Studio 4K Pro and other switches using SDI connectivity. It also adds the Ethernet port to integrate with the Studio converter and additional Talkback 5-pin XLR port to use professional Talkback systems, and additional 12-volt power delivery port to give you greater choice of power options. So let's examine the key features more deeply. So again, 4K Plus and 4K Pro offer the key benefits of the studio style functionality all combined into a single self-contained unit. The name studio cameras may imply a technically complicated configuration, but it's quite the opposite that is the case. So DSLR and camcorders users have had to build complicated rigs of additional adapters to achieve only partial functionality of the studio cameras. So these are all in one design and all built into the studio cameras that come without the need of using additional adapters. Even the professional 15mm rod support come as standard with two of these cameras. So just to summarize, you've got a built-in 7-inch viewfinder for quick framing, focus, and exposure control. Comprehensive I/O for HD over HDMI for small studios, and SDI and Ethernet for 4K productions. Dedicated Talkback, dedicated Tally, dedicated full-size XLR ports for balanced audio delivery. So that all comes with under the Studio Camera 4K Pro or 4K Plus models. So I promise that we will look at some key workflows. So we've got 3 key workflows that we believe that these cameras will be operated at most in the small scale productions. So first of all, they all combine Atem ecology. So Blackmagic studio cameras With Atem switches, they communicate well for deeply integrated multi-camera systems that normally are only found in high-end production systems. So third-party cameras, of course, work with Atem switches, be it Atem mini switches or larger Atem television and broadcast studios, but they don't offer the same level of integration. For example, third-party cameras, they don't give you the full color matching and control of your lenses remotely via Atem software control and hardware and hardware camera control units. Atem switches also offer that production quality and efficiency that is scalable depending on the studio camera and Atem switcher combination that you choose. So you can either achieve varying levels of production quality and efficiency in HD or 4K by combining the studio camera 4K models with either Atem mini switches, series switches, or more sophisticated SDI-based Atem models. So in the first type of setup, we have the studio camera 4K Plus being used via with an HDMI connectivity in conjunction with the Atem Mini Pro ISO switcher. So the camera has got the HDMI connectivity that's been designed to integrate with Atem Mini Series switcher, which is ideal for small studio productions such as podcasting, magazine shows, and interviews, where cable runs are generally short. Instantly, the camera will detect that it's connected to the Atem Mini switcher, and we switch into HD mode for delivery, while still recording, if you select so, if you connect an SSD drive, still recording full UHD Blackmagic RAW via USB-C. So multi-camera setups can be managed centrally from the switcher using Atem software control and the hardware panel. The technical simplicity of the studio camera complements the ease of use of the Atem Mini, leaving the operators free to concentrate on creative output rather than on the focusing on technical difficulties. We're already finding that many content creators are opting for the Studio Camera 4K Pro version to get that extra level of audio options. In the setup as well, we are showing that it's being used with HyperDeck, which can be used either as a recording media for Mini Pro ISO or as a separate input, additional video channel, or it can be used with an USB-C SSD drive to record your program output into. So just to get some further clarity on the workflow, we're going to look now at how it actually works with the Atem ISO files. So when using the Atem Mini Pro ISO, you can record, you can connect a USB-C drive directly to this Atem switcher and record your program output into H.264 highly compressed files, which are great for efficiency and small file sizes. So you get as many files as your video inputs. So for example, if you're using 4 cameras, you get 4 channels for each of the cameras and 1 additional 5th recording for your program output. So that means that when your cameras are connected, even if they're not if they're not live, they continue to record into the into Atem Mini files, ISO files into H.264 format. And you also get your program output, which you can quickly distribute and send in HD quality. But of course, you may want to get some extra flexibility when working in post-production. So it also records a DaVinci Resolve DRP project file. So when you open this file in DaVinci Resolve, it contains all your channels, video channels, and your program output in a multi-camera setup. So you can recut your program output. You can change the cut points in case you decide that you actually miss some action on one of the camera channels. And then with a one click of a button, you can replace those H.264 files with the files that you recorded into your studio cameras, into SSD drives. So these are for Blackmagic Raw 4K 12-bit files. That gives you that extra level of flexibility for color grading and, of course, higher resolution should you want to provide a different version of your program after the live event has ended. So the next level of the production is using the Studio Cameras 4K Pro using Sdi Connectivity. In this case here with the Atem Television Studio Pro 4K switcher. So we've got the Sdi connectivity. So you've got two cables per camera for input and output. So this is great for budget productions in 4K for content such as big brand magazine shows where image quality is paramount, and for events capture such as live performance and conferences requiring slightly longer cable runs comparing to HDMI connectivity. So it's a step up to 4K quality, which allows you for cable runs up to 100 meters. So your cameras can be placed 100 meters away from your switcher when using Sdi connectivity. And Sdi infrastructure adds a number of additional benefits to improve operational efficiency. For example, you get the Talkback, which is embedded into the Sdi signal. So you can connect a Talkback headset, either the professional Talkback headset or even a iPhone style normal via mini jack TRRS connectivity. You get the full Talkback operational efficiency. Of course, features like tally as well, and audio. Switchers can send program return video to the camera, so the operator can flip the viewfinder input to see the on-air program output, so they know what's actually what the viewers are seeing at the moment. The camera control fully integrated into the SDI as well, into these cameras. So any studio camera uses full camera control when working with Atem switches. Great thing about it is that it offers that lens control as well as sensor control. So things like white balance, shutter speed, these can be controlled centrally from the Atem switcher, and this does not only affect the video channel, the input. It actually integrates on this on the sensor level. So any shading that's been moved from DaVinci Resolve into Atem software control, any shading that you implement, it affects the sensor output of the camera. So it does not affect the quality in a detrimental way. That's something that you do not get when working with third-party cameras and switches. And in this setup, again, we're using Web Presenter 4K to stream the program output directly to either to social media platforms. And Hyperdeck in this example is used to record the output from the switcher, which again can be then relinked in DaVinci Resolve. So the third setup uses Ethernet connectivity. So the broadcast TV studios and live events such as outside broadcasting, they use SMPTE fiber connectivity. So that's a large thick fiber optic cable between the camera and the switcher to carry video and audio and control protocols both ways, as well as talkback and power delivery. But the Ethernet option is a more budget-friendly option comparing to SMPTE fiber cables. It simplifies the camera cable loom and allows long cable runs, which may be otherwise impractical with a full cable loom. So Blackmagic has applied this principle to more affordable Cat6 Ethernet transmission, replacing the optical fiber cable with copper cable. The Ethernet connects directly into the camera head, and but needs a separate studio converter box, which will be available to purchase later this year. So one box per each camera to connect at the switcher end for distances up to 70 meters. So here's an example of the setup, very similar to the Sdi Connectivity, but using 10G Ethernet connectivity. So it's a great solution for larger venues and live events such as theaters, houses of worship, and conferences, which typically require long cable camera runs beyond the 10-meter limit of HDMI, but where a traditional SDI cable may be impractical to deploy. This is not to be confused with a standard video over IP application. It is a different protocol. So we have one Ethernet cable that connects the camera to the studio converter. You can keep the studio converter somewhere closer to the switcher. With one cable, you can deliver all the connectivity to your camera and back to the switcher. So that is video, audio, talkback, tally, camera control, and even power. So it does use power of Ethernet to deliver bidirectional data and bidirectional video and power your camera without the need for your power cable. Sorry, one of my lights died, but it's okay. So again, that converter will be available later in the year, and it simplifies setups for studios that already have the Ethernet infrastructure deployed within the studio, so you can connect your camera to an existing infrastructure within your studio. So these are the quick product comparison between the Studio Camera 4K Plus and 4K Pro. Again, the Plus model has been designed for more affordable HD production using Hdmi connectivity, and the Studio Camera 4K Pro gives that extra level of connectivity with professional SDI, balanced XLR audio, dedicated talkback headset connectivity, and additional Ethernet port, as well as 12 extra second 12-volt input. So the Ethernet connectivity is only available in the Pro model. Right, so let's look at some to summarize the common attributes of the two cameras first. So again, both cameras are designed to work in conjunction with Atem switches. They both have the same 4K sensor, 13 steps of dynamic range, and dual native ISO functionality. And they both allow you to record externally to SSD drives into full 12-bit Blackmagic RAW files. The Studio Camera 4K Pro is designed to pair especially well with Atem mini switcher via HDMI connectivity. It's got that 600 nit touchscreen. And the Studio Camera 4K Pro, again, is designed to work in 4K productions using either SDI or Ethernet connectivity with brighter 12,000 nit screen and professional balanced XLR audio and talkback connectivity. Okay, so we got to the end of this presentation. So it's now time for a Q&A session. But before we go there as well, you can see on the screen, you can take a note of the email address at which you can contact myself and my team should you have any questions relating to our products before you purchase. If you need an advice, which product is right for you, which camera is right for you, please give it a go. You can email us. Chances are that if it's relevant to the camera products, it will be me who will pick up your email and get back to you. So now I'm handing you back to guys from Highway AV. Let's start the screen share, and great. So I'm for your disposal now. So I will try to answer all of your questions that you asked during the presentation. So off to you guys. Thank you.
Man, Tom, thank you so much for that, man. That was very. I think all of us got a lot more information about the Blackmagic than we had in our own tests and in our own previous knowledge of Blackmagic. Um,
Really good, yeah.
I'm honestly, I'm sure Fazia and Biola as will agree as well. Like we didn't know that the breadth of the studio camera could have done a lot more than we thought. I think we had some questions pop up in the chat. Let me not waste too much time. Um, I think we had a few questions. If I can't see it on my end, Fazia, can you see it? Mr. Biola, can you see it on your end? Are there any questions that have popped up directly to you? Fazia.
So you should. So we got the same. You can see the questions there on the screen.
Yeah.
I think there are seven open questions.
Okay.
Let's
I
see.
think my issue comes from I think me switching systems kind of cleared all my questions away.
Right. Okay, so I'll get the first one then. I read it. That's the first time I'm reading it. So
Okay.
it comes from Stephanie. So my question is on Atem Mini Pro. What software is most compatible with it for live stream? I use it with OBS, but I face a lot of technical difficulties. That's a good question. So OBS, it's a great piece of software, but I think everyone agrees that it's very complicated to use. It offers great features, but takes some level of skill and getting used to it. And again, comes with technical difficulties, as you mentioned. So a bulk of the functionality depending on the type of production that you're delivering, bulk of the functionality of OBS actually is built into the hardware panel, the Atem Mini. So things like screen on screen, multi-camera, of course, keying. So if you got green screen, blue screen, or any other color of screen, you can use Atem without the need of external software. So the idea is that for those, not necessarily basic, because they come beyond the basic setup. So it's not just talking head like I am now, but all those most common scenarios, you can use the Atem Mini Pro directly to stream into social media platforms like YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Vimeo, and any platform really. You can use Restream.io as well, without the need for external software. If you do want to use external third-party software, there is actually a list of compatible softwares. So I don't remember the full list from the top of my head, but things like Vmix, which is very popular amongst broadcasters, which offers much simplified. So for anyone who's familiar with broadcast terminology, Vmix uses exactly that. And there is, as far as I remember, it is paid, but it offers a free trial to test it. And at the moment, I'm blank when it comes to what other software it is. Perhaps Joel or the guys at Highway can help with listing the most common software. But again, the basic answer is that you don't actually need that software. You can stream directly from Atem.
I think if what would be great is if you can send us an email. I'm going to pop an email in the chat now because of our time. I'm going to pop an email, our direct email address here. We will talk further off the webinar, and we can recommend further software that will work for you. So if we can we please move on to the next question? Thank you so much.
Let's see. I hope high temperature of the camera has been worked on. So I'm guessing that refers to some overheating issues that someone might have faced. Not sure compared to what camera to previous studio cameras iteration. Well, the body of these studio cameras, the new ones, is slightly larger and allows room for added slightly larger cooling systems. So Again, the sensor is the same as the pocket camera 4K, and the cooling system as well is equivalent to is adequate for that sensor. So we haven't had the issues of overheating so far. So again, the body is actually larger than pockets in our cameras, so therefore it allows greater breathability and airflow. Okay, I want to understand how talkback option work. Right, so talkback, when using Atem switches, it's very little that you need to set yourself. It works only with the Studio Cameras 4K Plus in conjunction with the larger Atem switches. But you can also use it with third-party switches. So when using Sdi Connectivity, Sdi, as we know, has got 16 channels of audio, and talkback with these cameras is embedded into channel 15 and 16. So any switcher will see it as a normal audio, and Atem switches will automatically detect it. Therefore, you can just tell your switcher to look for channel 15 and 16 to see the talkback. If you don't have talkback functionality, you can use external talkback boxes, again available from Blackmagic as well. The talkback essentially allows you to connect a headset to the camera and talk to the director who may be in a separate room. And that's essentially that. It's pretty basic and quite simple to follow. There is a minimal setup required. You just need to enable it in your switcher. Right. What are the focus options on these cameras? So the cameras have got autofocus, and there's no. It's a kind of tap to focus autofocus. And you can focus also when using autofocus lenses via focus demand, which is an external USB-C accessory, which is now shipping imminently, and also the Atem software control. There is an option to focus, so I can present it to you quickly. So I'm using a Micro Four Thirds autofocus lens, and I can use the Atem software control to get me out of focus, and I should be back in focus now. There is also an autofocus button. Any other questions that you spotted, Joel?
I think we had a question from Emmanuel Adili. He asked if you're using the Studio 4K Pro, Studio Camera 4K Pro, sorry, how do you receive it on your Atem switches? I'm guessing he's referred to connections.
Mm-hmm. So with the Studio Camera 4K Pro, it offers all the types of functionality you can really connectivity you can think of. So with the HDMI, you simply connect one HDMI cable to your Atem mini switcher, to the HDMI input of your Atem mini switcher, and that's it. The switcher can see the camera automatically. With the SDI functionality, with the larger Atem switches, you need to connect 2 cables per camera. So the switcher will have input and output for each channel. If you only use one cable between the camera and the switcher, you will get the image from the camera and the audio from the camera, but you will not get the Atem software control. So the second SDI, which goes back to the return input of your camera, gives you that extra camera control functionality. When using Ethernet, you simply move the same to the camera converter. So you connect the Ethernet cable to the converter, and then on the converter end, you connect the 2 SDI cables to your switcher. There's depending on the switcher, there is not much more that you need to do.
Also, we got another question here. I've answered the next one from Moses from Kenya. Moses is going to get in touch with Fauzia in Kenya there, and they will definitely hook him up with all the gear he needs. Next question is from Your Event Live. I must give them a big shout out there. Good. Great clients of ours, and the question here is, when the BMD cameras are connected to the Atem Mini series, the cameras are locked into recording in Blackmagic RAW codec only. As a Final Cut editor, this creates some issues trying to edit the footage in post. Is there any plans to unlock ProRes recording, or alternatively releasing a plugin similar for the one for Premiere Pro?
It is a good question. The studio cameras, they only record in Blackmagic RAW. So there is no ProRes recording or other video codecs available in the camera. So when it comes to studio cameras, the question is, of course, no, because there's no other codecs available in these cameras. With pocket cameras, you're right, it switches directly to Blackmagic RAW. And the answer, although maybe not fully satisfactory, is that I don't know. The Blackmagic RAW functionality, the fact that it switches to Blackmagic RAW is to provide that full sensor camera control that you wouldn't get with ProRes codecs. So the camera needs to switch to Blackmagic RAW to give you the camera control. So yeah, it needs to switch to Blackmagic RAW to give you the full camera control functionality. Whether we are planning to kind of allow users to sacrifice that or a plugin, at the moment we don't have the plans to do it. But hopefully, I do agree that, of course, it does imply some limitations for Final Cut Pro users. Premiere Pro recently added official support for Blackmagic RAW. We'll see, perhaps Apple do the same and will offer Blackmagic RAW functionality. We are open, when it comes to Blackmagic RAW, we are open to giving it to as many platforms as camera as possible, because we truly believe in the potential of the codec. So that's, for example, seen in Video Assist, which recently even added some additional cameras constantly, like GH5, I think, has been the latest addition to Video Assist functionality. Viola, are you trying to, you have raising your hand?
Yes, thank you, Tom, for even saying all this. And there's a question here asking if we can actually attach B4 lenses to the studio camera. And interestingly, that's one of the installations we just did recently in Nigeria. So I'll have Tosin to quickly jump in and say anything about that. Tosin, please.
Okay, so
good afternoon. I'm Tosin.
Hello.
Okay. So recently we did an installation in the studio in Nigeria, and then we did the initial plan was to go with the broadcast cameras, and because the broadcast camera, we had to go with the studio camera that just came in. And then we had the client already purchased a few broadcast lenses, and then we had no choice but to look for a way to adapt them to the Blackmagic studio cameras. And we've been able to do that. We did an installation which was completed recently, and we're able to bring in the fiber converters to adapt from the BMC connectors into the fiber converter, and send them then over a talkback converter to the Atem switcher. We still have full control. We're able to get rid of the crowd factor, in the sense that these cameras are low light cameras, and they gave out fantastic pictures. So Joel is sharing the pictures as we speak. For every other person who is on the floor. Yeah, Joel is sharing the pictures as we speak. For every other person who wants this done, contact Highway in Kenya, Highway in Nigeria, and Highway in UK. Thank you.
So yeah, I made it, put on the highlights to make it.
Oh, this is great. This is great. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, like just kind of reiterate what Tom was saying, for everyone that's on the webinar right now, and you're based in Nigeria, we are going to send you, because we have all of your details, we will be sending you the details for Nigeria, where you can contact us directly. Like you've met Viola and Tosin, incredible guys, so they'll definitely help you out with anything that you need. I think just because of time, we've got no more questions left. I think the last question was, can the pocket camera, I guess he's referring to the pocket, okay, can it record on storage cards like SDI, CFI?
Let me see the question. Can the pocket camera record on storages like SDI cards or CFI? So, I'm not sure if you mean SDI cards or SD cards. Because the answer is I don't know. I'm not sure what SDI if it's just a typo, or maybe I just don't. Maybe it's just my knowledge. But yeah, SD cards. Absolutely, the pocket camera records to SD cards and CFast cards.
Yeah.
When it comes to CFast cards, there are a few options, so don't get confused. There are CFast cards and CF Express cards, so it has to be CFast, not CF Express, which is slightly different physical size. And what was I going to say? Yeah, SD cards and CFast cards by all means, and also USB-C SSD drives. There is a full list on our support page of cards, SD cards, CFast cards, and SSD drives compatible with the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. So just to reiterate, again, the CFast cards and SD cards are available in the Pocket cameras, but not in the studio cameras. Studio cameras only support SSD USB-C drives. Can we get? Let me try to find if I can provide a link to the support page that has the recommended drives for the Pocket 4K cameras. Just bear with me. Okay, and I'm putting the link in the answer to that question. There is a link to the list of recommended storage media for the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K.
Thanks for that, Tom. I think just before we let you go, Mr. Bill wanted to answer a question. Somebody was asking, can we adapt B4 lenses to the studio camera? Mr. B, please, over to you as we round up.
I think that was already answered, wasn't it?
What was it answered, Mr. Bill? My apologies. I thought it wasn't answered.
So I think that's what we got on the screen now. So some applications. So I would be quite interested to see those workflows as well. So if you can guys email me with that would be nice. Blackmagic would love to see that stuff, because it does, as you can see, it is possible. Although it does invoke some limitations. So B4 lenses, they require external power, which traditionally is delivered via the high-rose connector. The studio cameras don't have that connector, so you would need to use custom solutions, and of course a lens adapter. But stay tuned as well, because we are going to have some B4 options coming soon as well. I can't tell you anything more at the moment.
Yeah, sorry, Tom. Just before we let you go, we had to let you see this as well. The guys in Kenya went to do an installation for Christian University, and this is just some of the shots from their recent project that they worked on. So I think, Fazia, if you're there, do you mind just chipping in for 30 seconds as to how this project went? Fazia was one of the lead engineers and the ones that installed this project over there. So Fuzzy, if you're there, just quickly chip in for about 30 seconds. Let us know a bit how that went for you guys. How did you apply the studio cameras to this particular project? Because I really wish I was there with you, but I can't speak on that. So Fuzzy, if you're there, please go ahead and unmute yourself. Let's hear from you.
Yeah.
You're still muted.
I can only ask you to unmute. I cannot force you to unmute.
I wish you could. We can see you talking.
Should I leave these images as full screen at the moment?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I think I can see that they're on the Fazia's background as well.
Oh, okay. Then if it's there, then.
And she's back. I'm unmuted.
Okay, she's back. Oh, beautiful. All right, let's say your pretty voice, Fazia.
Right, we cannot hear you.
We can see you, which is great, but okay, I think you know what we'll do. If we don't get Fazia's voice in the next couple of seconds, we'll make sure we get this to you, Tom, with her voice live and direct on it, so you can see you'll hear how excited she was to have done this project.
Oh, so it's actually a video with a voiceover.
I think that what we'll do is we'll get it done for you. We'll put some of our own highway magic on there and make it presentable for you. Fazia, are we good? Any progress? Okay, if you're good, let's go ahead. Let's hear from you. If not, I think we'll bring this to a close. Are you good? Okay, yeah, please go ahead, Fazia. Okay, you're really faint though. If you could just.
Can you hear me? Joel, am I still faint? Let's just wrap up.
Okay, yeah, you're good, but your volume is just a bit low.
Oh. So, can you hear me or should we just wrap up? Because I think.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. I mean, let's have a go.
Okay,
If you just a bit more volume would be perfect.
Okay, the university was looking for a solution for their students, the film students and the TV students. So when the cameras were launched,
I'm not sure if you guys can hear. I can't hear anything.
and went ahead to come and ask more about the units and got the units. So
Okay,
the
so
camera, they are very much impressed with it because they use it for their chapel services.
did I hear something?
Can you hear me?
No, I thought I heard something for a second, but it's gone again. Sorry, Fazia. So unfortunately, having some technical difficulties.
Now because time has really run out. Joel, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, it's very soft and quiet, but at least it's better than nothing.
Yeah, so they
just going to increase me.
With the cameras, and they're using it for their chapel services every Sunday, and as well for their trainings, for their classes, streaming live to students at home because they have virtual classes now. And generally, it's a unit that you people out here should get it. And if you want to get the unit, Joel has told you we have an office in Nairobi and Nigeria and UK as well. So we are across Africa and in the UK. And thanks so much for the great presentation, Thomas. That was really amazing. And the in-depth of how the studio can actually, the studio camera you can make the most out of it by just using the Atem mini switches. So I don't have much to say, just applaud you for the presentation. And Joel, back to you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Razia. That was beautiful. We got to hear your lovely voice at the end.
Thank you. No, it was great being able to present. So thank you for having me as well. It is quite a in-depth subject, so we try to concise it into that around 1 hour presentation. But of course, nothing beats hands-on experience. So I'm sure you guys are able to visit any of the highway AV stores to lay your hands on any of the equipment and try it yourselves.
Yeah, correct. Tom, once again, we want to say thank you to you. Thank you to the Blackmagic for making this happen. We're looking forward to the new updates that come up, and I hope that everyone has got the information that they so need. Just before we go, I want to say thank you to Highway as well. Each and every one of us, Mr. Biola, who is managing Nigeria, who is and Fazia, who's also holding it down there in Kenya.
Joe?
Yes, Mr. B, go ahead. I could just to remind everybody as well that's on the webinar, before you go, we have a 20% off promotion on any of the Atem Mini family switches, but excluding the Atem Mini. It's excluding the Atem Mini. Only available, the 20% off goes for the Atem Mini Pro, Atem Mini Pro ISO, Atem Mini Pro, Atem Mini Extreme, and the Atem Mini Extreme ISO. So only on those 4. If you are based in Kenya, we will definitely contact you for only those available on the webinar, and the offer ends, I believe, today. I've just got confirmation that it ends today. So if you try and contact us tomorrow, it goes back to its normal price. But if you contact us today, we will definitely get it to you. Thank you for the repetition, Fazia. Let them know again in Kenya. Yeah, it will end. It will end today. So we will, for each of you that are, messaging and asking us in the chat, email us. We'll send you our information, and you'll be able to know what the offer entails a lot more. So I think on that note, we are happy to let you go. Happy to say thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and we look forward to seeing you soon. We have some updates coming your way, so please stay tuned. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Thank you, Thomas.
Again, thank you, anyone.
Thank you guys for joining in. Bye-bye.
Now we can hear you.
Now she's back.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's been a great time. Thank you so much. And thank you, Doc, Fauzia, and Joel for holding it down. Thank you from Lagos.
Thank you, Mr. B.
Yeah, and we sign out from the UK as well.
Thank you again, everyone. And
Man, Tom, thanks a lot.
All right, Tom.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, guys. Bye.